to the Root of All Broth. I'm Kathleen Hill and welcome to my kitchen. This is the show where we talk about the inspiration behind the foods we cook. Now I'm a working mother, so I don't have time every single night to cook meals from scratch. So what drives me to the kitchen has to be a little more than necessity. A lot of the time it's inspiration. So what inspires us? Well, the theme of this week is family. I grew up in a family that loved cooking and loved foods, and we celebrated it throughout our lives. My grandmother would spend hours with me looking over cookbooks and her recipes, and I got my passion for cooking from her. And my mother and father were wonderful cooks, and they would spend hours in the kitchen together whipping up new recipes. I remember spending many a Saturday morning in front of the television watching people like Julia Child, Natalie Dupree, and Jack Pepin cook some of their classic recipes. And as a family, we would learn new techniques and celebrate the joy of cooking together. So now welcome to my kitchen, and I'm going to share my recipes with you. So let's get started. Since this episode's theme is family, I'm going to start with a recipe my family loves and I know my grandmother would love. It's chicken and dumplings. It's not her recipe, it is my recipe, but I know she would love it. It's a very southern dish, of course, but it seems like that it should be a southern dish since I'm from Georgia, so we'll start from where I came from, right? So don't forget, if you like this video, click and subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. So let's go step by step, shall we? Okay, so you're just going to simply rough cut this onion. You can quarter it if you like. If you like big pieces in your chicken and dumplings, you can leave it just quartered. Some people don't like that big of pieces. Some people actually take this out before they make the rest of their broth. I leave it in. I love it. I love the big chunks of onion. But you can actually cut this down a little bit more if you like. So I'm just going to cut this one more time. This way. And it's very easy. That's all you got to do. And it's really starting to smell great in the kitchen with that onion. And now I'm starting to cut the celery. I've already cut the ends off. We're just going to simply cut it into small pieces. Some people don't like celery, and they want to leave it out, but I would not recommend that. My husband and I didn't have celery one night, and we left that celery out, and we just really missed the taste of it. So you really need that celery to make this broth complete. When you're making chicken and dumplings, I like to use a large Dutch oven. So here's what I was saying. I've got all my ingredients over here ready to go. And so I'm going to see how much room I've actually got in the bottom of this pan. So, honey, if you can pan down here, my husband is my cameraman today. So you can see I've got plenty of space here for more than 4 chicken thighs. So I'm going to go ahead and open my other pack. I just want you to check and make sure that you've got enough space in your Dutch oven before you start adding pieces, because you don't want too many pieces in there. So I have enough, so I'm going to go ahead and open my other pack. So as you can see, I have 6 chicken thighs in here, and I'm going to go ahead and add my celery and my onions. It's just that easy. It's not difficult. I just hope you guys try this out. Now I'm going to fill this with water to where everything is submerged in water. So that's why you need a big pot. It's very important that you also have a pot with a lid, because like when I make stock, I like to put the lid on for a little while, okay? So we're going to go ahead and add water to this. Okay, now that you have your chicken and your celery and your onions submerged, we're going to put it on the stove. I've turned it to medium low. I have mine on my setting on 4. I have gas. My oven and stove run really hot, so I'm going to keep it here. Once it started boiling, I'm going to add this large bouillon cube. I use Knorr. Of course, we don't have any sponsors here. No one's asked me to say Knorr, but this is a Knorr chicken bouillon. It's one of the larger cubes, but if you don't find the larger cubes, you can use 2 small chicken cubes and put that in. Once it has started to cook, maybe like an hour, hour and a half on low, then we're going to take that chicken out, and once it gets to the internal temperature of 165, then we'll be able to take it out and get ready to get started. The kitchen smells wonderful. I wish you could be here to smell it. So just give us a little more time and it'll be ready. Okay, so we're at the point where we're ready to pull our chicken out. So we're going to go over here and pull out a thigh. If in the process while you were cooking, if you were cooking it low and slow, you can replace the water in this broth or as you go, because you don't want that chicken to become exposed to the air and dry out. So you can add back a little bit of water or even a little bit of store-bought chicken broth, but I wouldn't recommend necessarily store-bought chicken broth. If you have homemade broth, that's even better. We're gonna go ahead and turn this off now so we don't lose any more of that moisture, okay? So as we come over here, I like to use dark meat. That's why I use chicken thighs. You can use other pieces of the chicken, but chicken thighs are easy to cut up. You know, they're easy to take off the bone. I love dark meat. I think it makes a rich, nice, meaty, and moist piece of chicken. Now, if you're going to pick this apart instead of cutting it off the bone, I'm using a knife and fork, as you can see, then what you're gonna wanna do is wear a pair of gloves, heat resistant gloves, much as like you would do if you picked barbecue, because we can be burned in this process if you don't wear some kind of protection, especially if you're sensitive to high temperatures, as I think most of us are. I don't know if any of us are resistant to high temperatures, so just be careful. So there is a little bit of meat left on this bone. I don't want to get it too close to where you're getting cartilage in it. We're going to take that bone, I'm going to put it here in my pot. When you cut this chicken, we're just going to rough cut this chicken. We want this to be chicken and dumplings. We don't want this chicken shredded, okay? We want to be able to taste that chicken. So then I'm going to go ahead and just put that in my pot. And it's just that easy. You're going to continue to do that with all the thighs that are in the broth cooking right now. And then after that, we're going to move on to making our dumplings. Okay, so now we're to the point where all of our chicken is cut up and we're about to add the soups into our broth. I use Campbell's cream of chicken and cream of celery. You can use whatever brand you want. Again, we do not have a sponsor. This is just what I grew up using. Campbell's. For other things, for other recipes, I use different brands. But for this one, I use Campbell's. So what are you going to say? We're going to add that to our broth. This is not a low-fat recipe. Sorry. Full fat, but full deliciousness. But that's not all this channel will be. There will be lots of different types of recipes because we're inspired in many different ways, right? So this is the recipe that reminds me most of family though. So I'm going to go ahead and just stir that up, but I will not use this spoon throughout the process. Okay, so now we're mixing that cream of celery and cream of chicken soup into the broth. And you can see it's not thick yet, but we're going to solve that a little later with some milk and some cornstarch. But for right now, this is the consistency you want it to be. Now, we're about to season, and every good cook knows you have to taste to season. And if you add anything back, like more water or more chicken stock, like I was telling you when we were working with the chicken thighs earlier, you always have to recheck your seasoning. You can't add another ingredient and not think you have to go back and check your seasoning again, right? So, really delicious. Okay, so a lot of people use salt and pepper. This is pretty salty. I did not use low sodium chicken soup, or cream of celery, so this has full sodium. So I don't really think I need more salt. What I do add is a little Cavender's. Again, not a sponsor. We're going to add that Cavender's Greek seasoning in there. That is delicious. And I think actually I'll add a little bit of freshly cracked pepper as well. So I'm going to add that next. Okay, so now I'm getting my husband, who's also my director and my AV guy. I'm a lucky gal, to grind some peppercorns for me to have like a rough, thick pepper. You can use regular ground pepper. I've got some regular ground pepper back there in the back, but I want it more coarse than that. Okay, so now I'm going to add some of this black pepper back into our broth here. And now my son is calling me from up the stairs, so we're going to take a little break. Okay, now we're going to take that fresh cracked pepper. We're going to go ahead and put it into our broth. If you have kids, You know that they're not going to want a ton of black pepper, but a lot of people love black pepper in chicken and dumplings, so you could also put this on the table and just let people add it themselves if they want more. Because you want to spice for everyone, and then let other people who like it spicier, add as they go. So next, we're going to move on to making our dumplings. Okay, so now we're here with our flour. I have self-rising flour. I'm going to take my cold water. It needs to be cold. And I made a little well, if you can see here in the flour. Come in tight, honey. Okay. And then I'm going to use a fork. Ta-da. And we're just going to add a little at a time, maybe a little bit of that water. And I'm going to mix here with my fork. All right, so add a little more water. And we can't use it sticky. So if it stays sticky, just add a little more flour. Basically, it's just flour and water. You can't get it wrong. The more dumplings you want, the more, you're gonna wanna make. So you really just can't get this wrong, guys. It's real easy. And you're gonna know that the dough is ready when it's not as sticky and it's pulling completely away. You see how that's kind of pulling away, but it's still sticky. I wouldn't want to turn this out yet, so we're just gonna add a little more flour. Here we go. Now it's starting to feel good. See that? Really coming together. Okay guys, so we've got this dough to almost exactly where we want it to be. I've used about 2 cups of flour to about 3/4 cup of that water. And like I said, you cannot get this wrong, so if it feels too sticky to you, add a little more flour. And I added flour there, and I'm also going to add it to my rolling pin. You want to make sure everything is really well floured. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this out. Okay, now we've got our dough turned out onto our mat here, and I've put flour here on the mat, a lot of flour, and a lot of flour on my marble pin. I like to use a marble pin when I use our chicken and dumplings. It doesn't stick as bad. You can use whatever you like. If you don't have marble, use wood. Our wooden roller's a lot bigger, so I use this one. You want it to be about 1 millimeter thick. You don't want to be paper thin because then they're not going to be as pillowy. You might be a little tough, but this is a good thickness. Okay, now we're going to get our fluted pastry wheel, and we're going to go ahead and start cutting vertically. Yeah, it's nice. We're going to make little pillows of love here, people. They'll always be sticky pulling them up. That's always going to happen. But if you find when you're starting to cut these and they're too sticky, go back, add more flour, roll it back up. Not the straightest lines, but they'll work. That's how you know it's homemade. Anything comes out perfectly pressed, we know it's out of a machine, right guys? Okay. Now you're going to want to make these. You can make them squares. I like to make them rectangles. So we're just going to go across slowly. I like a lot of dumplings. It's a lot of broth we have. So if you want to make more dumplings, make more dumplings. Your choice. That's the fun thing about this kind of recipe. I've got some babies on the end there, don't I? Look at that little pillow of love, guys. That little pillow is going to be delicious. Okay, so I've just turned my mat to the side because now I'm going to make my thickening agent for my broth. So I'm going to add my cornstarch. I use 1 heaping tablespoon of cornstarch, and I've got a cup of milk. Get your whisk and add a little bit of the milk at a time. when it's fully incorporated. All right. This is going to be ready to bring back over to our broth here in just a few seconds. We want to make sure you've got a couple things that have to be going on at the same time. You're going to be adding this thickening agent, you're going to be adding the chicken back to the broth, and then you're also going to be bringing that broth back up to a higher temperature so we can drop the dumplings. So you're going to need to start clearing your area. So we're going to take this over to where we were cooking our broth. We're going to start adding that, and then we'll add the dumplings. So come back over here with me. Okay guys, now we're going to cut our broth back on. I'm going to put it on like 6, so medium-high heat. And we're going to let that heat back up for just a second. You don't want to leave it off long. You're going to be doing 2 things at one time. So I don't like to leave this on high or medium-high when I'm starting to add my thickening agents, because we are going to pump up that heat like I said, but you don't want to leave it too cold for too long. Okay, now I'm going to add my thickening agent, which is that cornstarch in the milk. I don't add my chicken yet, and I tell you why. I want to see what this broth is going to look like, you know, without the chicken in it. And then I can tell if it's thick enough for where I want it to go. So I'm just going to stir this up and take a look and see my thickness here as it heats up. Okay. Okay, now that our broth is heating back up, and we're going to look at that thickness here in a minute, I'm going to talk a little bit about those bones that we had earlier. You want to go ahead and keep these bones, because if you want to make chicken stock later at home, make your own homemade chicken stock with some carrots, some onions, some parsley, keep these bones. That's what we use for chicken stock. We're going to have a recipe for homemade chicken stock sometime down the line, but just a reminder, keep your bones. Okay guys, now the thickness is getting there, but it's not yet where I want it to be. So I'm going to come in, I got another tablespoon of cornstarch, and I'm going to take a little bit of my broth, and I'm going to put it here in this ramekin. And then I'm going to stir this up till it's kind of to a desired, it's all incorporated here. And then I'm going to add that back to that broth. Now this is really starting to heat up. That should be the perfect thickness after adding that last bit of cornstarch there. So I like my chicken and dumplings to be a very nice thick broth. Some people might like it more like soup, but that to me is not thick. So you see it's starting to thicken up here, and then as it cools it'll even get thicker, but right now it's to the point where I'm going to go ahead and add my chicken. So we want to go ahead and come back over, get the chicken that we cut off the bone, and I'm going to add that back right here. So slowly, you don't want it splashing back on you here. Look at all that beautiful meat. And if you're overseas, I do have the Celsius temperatures, and I think you can take a look in the recipe in the description below. All right, so you can see, look at that. Beautiful. So you can see how thick this is, getting thicker by the minute. We've got lumps of chicken in there. Delicious, guys. Now I'm going to bump this up to high heat because I'm wanting this to come to a boil. And then once it gets to a nice boil, we're going to start adding our dumplings. That's the exciting part, where those pillows of love become perfect dumplings. Okay guys, while this is coming to a high boil, we're going to remember what I said. If you add any liquid, you need to reseason. So I've tasted it. I'm going to add a little bit more Cavender's. And then I'm going to add a little bit more of that fresh pepper my husband ground up for me. And then we're going to taste again, right? Keep your ladle from before, because when you start to serve, that's what you're going to need to serve. Look at that beautiful thickness. You see that, guys? How gorgeous that's looking. Look at that. Look at that big onion. Gorgeous. Let me grab a tasting spoon. Okay, let's taste it. Delicious. Really good. I'm gonna add a little more of this ground pepper. I really like pepper. Okay guys, look at this. You see it's starting to boil here. And this is the temperature we want it to be at because it's like a volcanic temperature. We're going to start dropping those pillows of love in there. If it's got any excess flour, we want to just shake that off as we drop them. You're going to fold these in. We don't want to stir them up. We're just going to drop them in. And this does take time, guys. If you have kids that are old enough to be over hot temperatures like this, this is a great job for them, or your wonderful husband, or just yourself. But if it's a long day, maybe you get somebody to help you out. Okay guys, we're coming to the last few. You look at that roiling boil there. Folding them in. You're gonna know they're done when they start to come to the surface. You see that? Beautiful, guys. Look at that thickness. You're going to want to be stirring and folding. You don't want anything sticking. So if you have someone to help you, it always is great. I had my hubby help me drop some of these in quickly while I stirred or folded. Last few. And guys, I'm just going to fold that. Look at that, guys. I got excited to try this. I am. Okay. Got a pillow stuck there to my spoon. We don't want him to get lost, do we? There we go. All right. Add a little more black pepper. Don't forget to taste. Doesn't that look beautiful? Now we're ready to serve it up. Okay, guys. Tasting one more time with a clean spoon. Delicious. Use your ladle. Look at that, guys. When it's cold outside, when you want to think of home if you're from the South, if you love chicken and dumplings, even if you're not, guys, this is a great meal to serve your family. There we go. Chicken and dumplings. Let me know what inspires you in the kitchen in the comments, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. And don't forget to click and subscribe and ring the bell for notifications.